On this video, I want to talk about the female body. I was thinking about it the other day that a woman's body ought to be a certified course of study. The reason is because there's always something going on at different stages, and each stage requires a lot of study, a lot of research, and a plan of what to do. And it's not exactly the same for any two people. So it's like you're always studying something, and each part of the study entails a whole new mindset and a whole new appreciation of life. You're just viewing things, learning new things, and sometimes they're happening so fast. At the end of that kind of course, don't you think we should get a certificate? I definitely do. Anyway, before I go into it, have you subscribed to my channel? If you haven't, please take a moment to click that bell button below and subscribe. That way you don't miss any of my videos when they come up. Thank you. All right, so let's dive right into it. First of all, I know that there are a number of men who watch my channel. I've got feedback from them, both online and offline. And so don't just say, oh yeah, this is for women, it's about women's bodies, this is for women. This video is actually for women and the men who love them. And that's because the changes that occur in a woman's body are not just physical most of the time, because there are hormonal changes. It affects them psychologically, it affects them emotionally. You'll see mood swings, you'll find hormonal swings. There are all sorts of things going on. And as a man who lives with a woman, maybe your wife, your daughter, your sister, you've probably noticed some of the effects of that. So suddenly she doesn't want to talk and things like that. So I'm sure you felt the effect of it. So yeah, you might want to watch this video so that you can understand what's going on with the women in your life. So let's start at the very beginning. We have children, boys, girls, and they're all growing up. Everything is hunky-dory, just going ahead until the late 10s, early teens, sometimes up to late teens, when they start going through puberty. And puberty happens over an extended period, so it's a process. But for some girls, it starts as young as age 8, and for some people, it continues up to as late as 17. And so, of course, we see the body development. And what this does for young girls is that many times suddenly they become very self-conscious. They realize that, oh my God, I'm not just the little girl I used to know. They are experiencing all sorts of changes. Their bodies are changing. They start their periods. Things are just changing. Of course, to drive all that, there are a lot of hormones raging, and things are just happening. And you find that little girls suddenly become self-conscious. They could become emotional in different ways because of the things that are happening and the psychological changes that they're experiencing as well, going from just being a little girl to now becoming responsible, having to take responsibility for certain aspects of their body. It can be quite a bit to deal with, but that's the first set of changes that happen. Now, the next level of change, usually from the late teens right through to the mid-20s, young adults, pre-marriage stage adults, what you find is things typically remain a bit stable. You find that maybe periods stabilize, but of course there are those monthly cycles, and that's when you tend to see the hormonal changes. But things remain relatively stable, all things being equal, if there are no underlying issues or nothing comes up. Normally, things typically remain stable during that time, and you can reach a balance. That's about the only time that you have that prolonged period of normalcy or stability. And then we go into the birthing stage, when women start to give birth. So I'm talking about a typical timeline. So from like the mid-20s all the way up to maybe late 30s. And pregnancy and birthing space can be a very challenging time. If you've been pregnant before, or you have a wife or you know somebody who's been pregnant, you know what it can be. All sorts of things are going on. All sorts. Everything. I mean, life as you know it just changes. Some people even start to see the signs before they realize that it's a pregnancy. They just start to notice some discomfort, some changes. Like, what's happening to my face? What's happening to my skin? What's happening to my nose? Things like that. And then they go to get checked and then they find out they're pregnant. Or you've been expecting it, you probably know that, okay, something has happened. I think I'm pregnant. Or the simplest, easiest sign, which is missing the period, happens, and then you're pregnant. But all through that pregnancy, there are all kinds of changes. Some good, some not so good. Some people can't hold any food down. It can be bad. It can be bad. I knew someone who could not hold any food down for 6 weeks. She lost weight. Some people continue in that for almost all the pregnancy, or they can eat very limited things. Some people just lose their appetite almost entirely, to the extent that they have to be hospitalized to keep their nutrition stable, to keep them stable. So I've heard people say in the pregnancy stage, especially men, and that, what's wrong with you? Be strong. Pregnancy is not a disease. Well, pregnancy is not a disease, true, but it is an altered state of being. The child that is growing is living off that woman. And typically we would call that kind of relationship a parasitic relationship. But this is a good thing. And so we won't label it parasitic. It's actually a bit symbiotic, but the truth is that child is taken from the woman's body, and it's also causing certain changes so that her body can support the baby. And those things come in different ways. So people are experiencing pain. In one of my pregnancies, I experienced a pelvic dislocation. I've seen people who grew up a shoe size, people put on weight, people's faces just grow out of proportion. I mean, it can be tough. So as she's dealing with the effects, the physical effects like the pain and all that, she's also dealing with the image. She's looking at herself and thinking, is this me? And I remember after having my first child, I went to the hospital after 6 weeks for my routine check. And the nurses at the hospital were like, oh my God, we didn't know you were this pretty. And I thought, oh gosh. I mean, does that mean I was ugly while I was carrying that baby? So if you have a woman around you at that period, you have to provide a lot of support for her. Emotional support, just be a form of moral support. Or if you're around somebody who's pregnant, whether you're male or female, if you're female, just support her in whatever way you can. She will have cravings that she herself does not understand. Some women have never tasted certain meals before, but suddenly they crave it. Some have these overwhelming urges to eat the most ridiculous things that are not even fit for human consumption. Some people can't hold themselves. They almost beg for food. And then, of course, there's the emotional part of it. There's the psychological part. There's just so much going on. Of course, there are the good parts. Like for some people, their hair just blossoms, their skin is beautiful, their nails are beautiful. There's that good part of it that comes with it. And so those birthing years, they come with a myriad of changes. That is another thing to study altogether. There are foods that a woman can take. There are foods that she cannot take. There are things that are healthy for some people. Some people develop certain allergies as a result of the baby that they're carrying. I think in my last pregnancy, I developed gluten intolerance. I'd been eating wheat all my life, and all of a sudden I couldn't keep down wheat. It was giving me a bloated stomach. I was in pain and all that every time I took wheat bread or any products made of wheat. So all sorts of things are going on. There will be some things she does not want to see. There will be some perfumes she cannot stand the smell. So please understand, that's why I said it's for women and the men who love them. So please try and understand what's going on and be empathetic and provide as much moral support as you can. Moving on. move into the afterbirth stage. So typically like 40s. And just when this woman has thought, yeah, finally I have my body back, I'm done with the kids and all that, other things start coming up. What makes the 40s good, or the late 30s into early 40s quite good for many people, is that the weight that they've gained over the years of giving birth and all that, this is a time when they can start to lose it. But then some people find out that this weight is not going. There are even some, like what happened to me, I have a 10-year gap between my first two kids and my last two kids. So I remember that when my second born was about 8, I went on a weight loss journey and it was fantastic. It was the first time in my life I had ever intentionally lost weight, and it was beautiful. I did it for 3 months and I lost 13 kg and I felt great. My body looked great. Everybody told me I was looking great. I felt great. It was fantastic. I was fit and I kept the weight off for a year, and all of a sudden I found myself pregnant again. And so I had worked hard. So for some people, they find out that they're able to do that weight loss. I worked hard and dropped the weight, and then I got pregnant again, and then weight came back on with the pregnancy. Because one thing you don't want to do while you are pregnant is to be dieting. It's not healthy for you and it's not healthy for the baby. Anyway, so I put back all the weight, and then I'm trying to lose the weight, and I find out it's not going. It's not as easy as it was the first time to lose the weight, but I lost some. And then, over time, I just started noticing I'm craving a lot of things. I'm craving sugar. I'm eating so much. What is going on? And that's when you find out that you are perimenopausal. So the periods haven't stopped. So you're not completely menopausal, but you're starting to experience the signs of menopause. And so some women find out that from their late 30s, early 40s, it's very difficult to lose weight. It's very difficult to lose back the weight that they had been. It's very difficult to be in that fit shape that they had been. And the worst bit is once you get into perimenopause, because your periods again start acting up, you're not sure when one is coming. You could have a 2-month gap and then have 2 periods back to back, like 12 days apart. Your hormones are all over the place again. It could become difficult to monitor your periods, and guess what? You're at risk of another pregnancy. Even if you had a kid 10 years ago, that happened to me. And then I've seen it happen to a lot of women who are around 40, early 40s, late 40s, because they don't realize that their periods have started acting up, their hormones have gone haywire. And I had to take out all forms of birth control because nothing was working. They were causing hormonal problems, pain that they hadn't caused before, all sorts of things that hadn't happened in the past 10 years. Or 13 years of being married started happening to me. And so I had to take out all forms of birth control. My periods were up and down. I didn't know when one was coming, when one was ending. I couldn't tell everything. And so that was how I found myself pregnant after almost 10 years of having babies. And so that happens a lot. It's quite a common story for people in their 40s or for people who are perimenopausal. I recently knew the case of a woman who was in her 50s who had the same thing. She even thought she had fibroids or something, and then she got there and they say, "Oh, madam, you're pregnant," and she has grandchildren already. So that is the thing. And in this time, you start to experience things like hair loss. Just find out that your hair is not growing, your nails are brittle, physical things are happening to you. You have pain in certain spaces, you are itching in other places. Things are just all over the place. Worst of all, it affects your mood again. So if you are over 40 and you find yourself snapping and getting irritable easily, just maybe perimenopausal. You just may be starting to experience the signs of menopause. So there's a lot going on at every given point in time. And then after that, go into full-blown menopause, which comes with its own host of changes altogether. And as women age, a lot of things change because of the changes in hormone, the drop in certain hormones, the increase in certain hormones. Bones become more brittle as they age. There are things that are typical to women as they grow older. And so there's always something happening with the female body. In my next video, we'll try and bring on a doctor to walk us through some of the things that we need to know as women in terms of our health, because your body is what houses everything else. You cannot take charge of your life if you cannot take charge of your body. If your body is not well, no matter how fit your mind is, no matter how smart you are, you won't be able to display it if your body is unwell. It will affect everything else. And so we've got to be able to take care of our bodies, understand what's going on with it, and give it the appropriate care it needs. So we'll do that in our next video. What did you learn today? Tell me in the comments below. Till I come your way again next time. Ciao.